Did you guess right? Well, if you did, then you guessed Chief Financial Officer as being the second most important executive inside of an organization. This is typical. It could be other executives for different reasons in different kinds of organizations. But primarily speaking, you're going to expect the CFO to be the second most important executive in any organization. So with that, let's dive into what a CFO is, what they do, what their responsibilities are, and why they're so important to an organization. So congratulations, you are now the CFO of this organization. Now what? What do you do? What does a CFO do from day to day, day in and day out? What are their strengths and what areas do they really focus their time and energy on? We're going to talk about that here. A CFO is the senior executive in an organization that focuses on managing that organization's financial resources. They track the cash flow through the organization. When money comes in, it sits in the bank account and then it goes out. We get money from customers and we give money to employees, to investors, to vendors, and so forth. And the CFO's job is to make sure all of that flows smoothly. They analyze the company's strengths and weaknesses from a financial perspective, and they do financial planning over long periods of time. It could be over a month or a quarter or a year or even longer than that. But typically they are kind of managing the numbers. You look at the numbers at the beginning of the period and at the end of the period, and they track performance period over period to make sure that the organization is trending in the right direction. The CFO role is a very critical and complex role in terms of an organization. It's the second most complex role behind CEO, but in a lot of ways, it's way more analytical and detail-oriented. Whereas a CEO is thinking about 1,000 things, a CFO is thinking about 100 things, but these 100 things go very deep, and you have to be able to understand all of the numbers that you're seeing. So to be a great CFO, you need to have very strong financial skills. The CFO is one of the few roles where I really do encourage you to have a professional certification, specifically a CPA or Certified Public Accountant certification. That is really important for C-suite financial officers or CFOs to have. CFOs oversee all of the financial aspects of the company, including payments, collections, banking, cash on hand, debt instruments, and they also determine what the investment strategies of the organization are. In smaller companies, you'll also see the CFO manage other organizational elements that are kind of on the administrative side of the company. Typically, you have the CEO who's very much focused on revenue generation and investment and leadership, and you don't want to burden the CEO with all of these administrative tasks. CFOs tend to be a little bit better with administration, so it's not uncommon to see a CFO who has HR, IT, finance, accounting, supply chain, procurement, compliance, security. All of these kind of roles tend to fall under a CFO in smaller organizations until they get to be so big that they need C-level executives in their own right. And then in addition to all of that, they're also working with the CEO to plan for both organic and inorganic growth. A CFO will be involved in picking out opportunities for acquisition, whether it's companies, products, contracts, people, whatever that might be. So any kind of M&A activity, a CFO will be deeply involved in all of those activities. But then also on the organic growth side, the CFO will help the team understand, well, we can hire these 2 people, but here's what happens if we do. If we want to hire 3 people, we have a problem. We can hire 2 right now. I recommend hiring 1 and then trying to hire more later. Like a CFO will help you understand what you can and can't do with the money and the financial resources that you have. They'll explain to you the costs of going into debt, because if you borrow money from a bank, you have to pay that money back with interest. And so if that makes sense, sometimes, a CFO is going to be able to financially plan all of that out and show you the trends and the what if scenarios and all of the analysis that executives on the C-suite team need in order to make good decisions that make sound financial sense. Without a CFO, an organization can be kind of like, oh, I don't know where all the money went. I can't believe we ran out of money. What happened here? And that happens. And so it's really important that this CFO or some sort of financial expert is involved, certainly in the early stages of companies, but in any size company, the finance person is going to be probably the second most important person in the organization behind the CEO.